In a modern management, particularly within Management Society 5.0, we often mistake individual talent for guaranteed success. However, Google's Project Aristotle and academic insight from MGM3043 reveal a different truth. A team's progress depends not on star power, but on the quality of member interactions. The foundation of these interactions is psychological safety, a strategy imperative for high performance. Psychological safety acts as a biological unlock. When individuals fear judgment, the brain enters a self-protective state, prioritizing survival over innovation. This leads to common information bias, where critical insights are withheld to avoid social risks. By removing these fears, teams transition from survival to positive synergy. Members stop performing for safety and start performing for impact, allowing the collective output to far exceed the sum of individual parts. High-performing units are defined by how their framework. In a blame culture, mistakes trigger the question, who is responsible? A move that encourages defensive silence. In a psychologically safe culture, projects are viewed as a learning experiments. They encourage shift from the person to the system, while the our process allows this to happen. By reducing the social cost of admitting error, organizations transform mistakes into valuable data, distinguishing resilient teams from static ones. Maintaining this environment requires conscious leadership, especially in hybrid work settings. Leaders must model humility and ensure equal conversational taking. Through tools like after-action reviews and social sensitivity, leaders bridge the gap between isolated individuals and a unified team. This intentionally is what enables a group to solve the complex, systemic problems of the modern era. In conclusion, psychological safety is the cognitive infrastructure of the modern workplace. It is the bridge from the individual talent to collective intelligence. The goal of management today is not just to gather the best people, but to build a culture where those people are safe enough to be brilliant.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 9 are going to present the case study in Chapter 10. Today we look at what truly makes a team high performing. From research, including Google's famous studies, points to one key factor. It is psychological safety. Coined by Amy Edmondson, it is shared belief that a team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. To be clear, it's not just about being nice. It describes a culture of mutual respect where members feel comfortable being themselves. In these teams, you won't be punished or ridiculed for making a mistake or voicing a different opinion. For Section 1, the biology and brain power. Why is this the key? It comes down to biology. As Paul Santagata from Google explains, success depends on our willingness to be vulnerable. When we feel unsafe or judged, the brain's fight or flight response kicks in. This effectively shuts down our analytical and creative centers. Psychological safety unlocks these resources. Instead of spending energy on self-protection, our brains can focus on high-level performance and for Section 2, how it drives performance. Based on our case study, psychological safety drives performance through four main behaviors. First, honest vulnerability. High-performing teams admit mistakes early. This allows for fast course correction before small errors snowball into major failures. Second, healthy debates. It ensures every member has an equal voice. When we remove the fear of retribution, we encourage healthy task conflict. This leads to better decision-making by considering diverse perspectives. The third one is dependability. Without safety, people often hide their struggles. Safety ensures transparency, meaning team members can rely on each other to be honest about deadlines and tasks clarified. The fourth one is creating a no-blame culture. In safe environments, the focus shifts from who made the mistake to how to fix it. This accelerates learning and encourages innovation as members are not afraid to voice the wrong opinions that might eventually lead to the right solution. Here is the detailed explanation. First, building can-do confidence means that, according to organizational theory, teams with a no-blame environment develop the collective belief that they can risk without fear or humiliation. This builds the can-do confidence necessary to tackle complex tasks. For reflective practice versus anxiety, based on Thornton 2016, a safe culture as a holding presence instead of reacting with anxiety during high pressure, teams look inward to understand the process of an error. This treats mistakes as data points for learning rather than grounds for punishments. The last one is healthy task conflict. By removing the threat of retribution, teams reduce dysfunctional personal friction and encourage healthy task conflict. This allows members to voice strong opinions that eventually lead to the right solution. Personal experience and society. I've seen this in my own experience. In teams where safety was low, we often stayed silent about errors to avoid embarrassment, which always hurt the final result. But in teams with high safety, I felt empowered to ask for help or challenge an idea. This transparency, which recommend 2024 notes is essential for human-centered management, allows a team to adjust their master plan honestly whenever goals aren't being met.
Hi, I'm Shafika at 74807, the foundation of high-performing teams. When we look at what makes a team truly high-performing, we often think of individual talents or technical skill. However, Google Project Aristotle revealed a different truth. The foundation of every great team is psychological safety. This isn't just a soft skill, it is the fundamental basis for four other critical components of effectiveness. When a team feels safe, they develop dependability because members can be honest about their progress. They gain structure and clarity as people feel free to ask questions about their roles without being judged. Finally, it creates meaning and impact, allowing every member to feel that their work is valued and significant. Without this foundation of safety, the other pillars simply cannot stand. The theory of synergy and dynamics to understand why this works, we can look at the research of Thornton 2016. He highlights that beneath the surface of every team exists a secret layer of unconscious dynamite. If the environment isn't safe, this dynamite can turn toxic. However, in a safe space, diverse individuals can contribute their unique personalities and skills without the fear of being marginalized. This is how teams avoid the trap of groupthink and achieve what Rushmad 2024 calls positive synergy in Society 5.0. This is the moment where the collective output actually surpasses the sum of individual contribution. On the flip side, a lack of security leads to social loafing and the withholding of vital information, which ultimately destroy a team reliability. We saw these theories come to life during our own academic journey here at UMT. Reflecting on our group projects, we found that psychological safety directly influenced both our mental well-being and the quality of our final grades. In previous semester, many of us encountered what we call dysfunctional teams. These were marked by a culture of blame. If a mistake was made, the group looked for someone to point a finger at. As a result, we withheld information to protect ourselves from criticism, which led to unmet deadlines and poor quality work. However, we took a radically different approach for our MGM3043 project. We intentionally fostered a safe space. We practiced active listening and, most importantly, we were open about our uncertainties regarding the complex topics in Chapter 10. Instead of pretending we knew everything, we admit when we were confused. This transparency allowed us to allocate tasks according to our actual strengths rather than just guessing. This experience perfectly resonated with Thornton's suggestions that we teams members feel secure enough to be authentic. It enhances collective strength. We demonstrate that when teams members feel secure taking risks together, the overall effectiveness of the group reached a new level. In summary, our analysis of Project Aristotle combined with our experience at UMT proved that psychological safety is the essential ingredient. It is the catalyst that transforms a disparate group of individuals into a cohesive, high-performing unit capable of achieving meaningful outcomes. Fostering the environment requires a shift in priority. We must focus on shared objectives and team efficiency while actively mitigating blame-oriented dynamics during conflict. As Taunton 2016 asserted, leaders must maintain a holding presence. This means staying grounded and supportive even when group complexities become overwhelming. Furthermore, as Rashmat 2024 pointed out regarding Management Society 5.0, cultivating a trust-based environment is becoming even more vital as we transition into virtual and hybrid teamwork. In a world where we often work behind screen, individual contribution must be anchored in trust. Ultimately, Chapter 10 reminds us that strong teams require leaders who don't just manage tasks, but who prioritize creating safe space where every member has the opportunity to thrive.
Question 30, I will discuss why team and organization sometimes find it difficult to create psychological safety, focusing on fear of rejection or punishment. Psychological safety is a crucial factor for effective teamwork. According to Robbins and Jones 2020, psychological safety refers to a shared belief that it is safe for team members to take interpersonal risks such as speaking up, asking questions, or admitting mistakes without fear of embarrassment or punishment. However, in reality, many organizations struggle to create this environment. One major reason is the widespread fear of rejecting or punishment among employees. Before voicing their ideas, many individuals unconsciously perform a cost-benefit analysis. They consider whether the potential benefit of sharing the thought will outweigh the risk of being criticized, blamed, or marginalized. When the perceived risks are too high, employees often choose to remain silent. This issue was clearly demonstrated in Google's project ISO, which found that even highly capable and high-performing employees tend to self-censor. They avoid speaking out because they do not want to appear incompetent or be judged negatively by their boss. As a result, team discussions are limited to safe or commonly accepted ideas, while innovative or unconventional ideas are. For example, a junior engineer may notice a flaw in a project design but decide not to raise the concern during meeting due to fear of criticism from more experienced colleagues. This silence can prevent problems from being addressed clearly and may eventually lead to costly organizational failures. In conclusion, fear of rejection and punishment creates a climate of defensive silence that significantly hinders psychological safety unless organizations actively encourage open communication, reward vulnerability, and treat mistakes as learning opportunities rather than reasons for punishment. They will continue to face difficulties in fostering true psychological safety within teams.
Next, reference for common information. Team members frequently share information that is common knowledge rather than presenting unique or differing perspectives. This tendency is referred to as the preference for shared information. It occurs when individuals feel more comfortable discussing ideas and concepts that are already embraced by the group, instead of introducing new or unconventional viewpoints. According to Suster and Titus 1985, group discussion typically revolve around information that all members already possess. While important yet rare insights are often ignored, this demonstrates that the focus on shared information is a consistent pattern in group behavior, rather than an isolated occurrence. Such behavior reflects a deficiency in psychological safety. Team members may feel that expressing alternative viewpoints could lead to criticism, rejection, or being perceived as incapable. As a result, employees often hold back their opinion and focus on safe subjects that align with prevailing perspectives. When teams continually concentrate on the same information, open dialogue, and the willingness to take interpersonal risks, diminish. This makes it increasingly difficult for organizations to foster an environment in which individuals feel confident to voice their opinion. Ultimately, an over-reliance on shared information not only reduces the quality of group decisions but also hinders the development of genuine psychological safety within teams. Recognizing and addressing these patterns is therefore critical for creating teams where diverse perspectives are valued and encouraged.
For this part, I will discuss how a lack of organization support makes it difficult for teams to create psychological safety. Psychological safety does not exist in isolation. It requires strong organizational support to ensure that team members feel valued, supported, and invested in by their organization. When teams lack access to essential resources such as timely information, proper equipment, or adequate administrative support, maintaining a safe and supportive team environment becomes very challenging. In situations where employees are under pressure to meet performance targets but are not provided with sufficient resources, stress levels tend to increase significantly. This high stress often creates a scarcity mindset where individuals become more focused on protecting themselves rather than supporting others or admitting mistakes. As a result, open communication and learning behavior within the team begin to decline. For example, in a fast-paced marketing firm, a team may be required to work using outdated software that frequently crash. Instead of reporting technical issues or asking for help, a team member may choose to remain silent, fearing that delays will be blamed of personal incompetence rather than poor infrastructure. This behavior further discourages openness and weakness psychological safety within the team. Research by JHA highlights that the relationship between psychological safety and team performance is strongly influenced by the organizational environment. When teams feel empowered and supported, they are more likely to engage in learning behaviors such as sharing deals, asking questions, and acknowledge mistakes. Conversely, when organization support is lacking, frustration and competition for limited resources increase, eroding trust among employees. In conclusion, without adequate organization support, employees tend to shift their focus from collaboration and learning to mere survival. This lack of support significantly undermines psychological physical and prevents them from performing effectively.
Last but not least, power distance and hierarchical norms. Teams often struggle to create psychological safety because of power distance and hierarchical norms. Power distance is the extent to which unequal power distribution is accepted within an organization. Hofstede 1918. In teams with high power distance, members may hesitate to speak up, share ideas, or admit mistakes, fearing that their input will be seen as incompetence. This limits interpersonal risk-taking, which is essential for psychological safety. Even at Google, which aims to reduce hierarchy, Project Aristotle showed that psychological safety does not automatically occur in all teams. Edmondson 1999 explained that perceived status differences strongly affect whether team members feel safe to contribute, challenge ideas, or raise concerns. Cultural diversity adds another layer of complexity. Different countries have different expectations of authority. Employees from high-power distant culture may rarely question supervisors, while those from low-power distant cultures may expect more collaboration. Without inclusive leadership that actively reduces status barriers, hierarchical norms remain a major obstacle to open communication and team effectiveness. In short, power distance and hierarchy can block psychological safety. Organizations need leaders who encourage inclusivity, respect cultural difference, and foster open communication. By doing so, teams can feel safe to speak up, share ideas, learn from mistakes, and perform at their best.
I will presenting the specific strategy to improve psychological safety in teams. Psychological safety is the secret sauce of the high-performing teams. It is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. My goal is to explain how we can move from traditional, fearful hierarchy to a culture where everyone feels secure to speak up, acknowledge error, and innovate without fear of punishment. Our first strategy is leadership, modeling vulnerability and inclusive facilitation. Team climate is driven by leadership. To achieve safety, leader must shift from being top-down director to inclusive facilitator. Leader need to practice leader humility. If a leader admit they don't have all the answer or acknowledge a personal error, it removes the perfectionist pressure from the team. This makes others feel safe to contribute without worrying about being seen. In practice, leaders should adopt a questioning stance by using open-ended prompt like, I may be missing a critical data point here. What risk do you see that I haven't mentioned? This explicitly gives the team permission to dissent. For example, at Google, managers often share their own failure story to prove that calculate risk-taking is value over playing it safe. Strategy number 2 is team process. Formalizing team reflexivity and feedback loops. Psychological safety isn't just about being nice. It's about having the courage for difficult conversations. Effective teams have high level of reflexivity, a cognitive process where the team stops to reflect on their objectives and strategies. Without this, teams experience process loss because members are afraid to push back against failing ideas. We can apply this by holding after-action review or post-mortem at every milestone. The emphasis shifts from who made the mistake to why did our process allow this mistake? This depersonalized failure, replacing a blame culture with a learning culture. Next, we look at team composition and communication norms. The communication structure of a team determines if its collective intelligence is actually used. Project Aristotle showed that the safest teams have a balanced distribution of conversational taking. If one person dominates, others may engage in social loafing or hide critical info. Managers should guide this using round-robin or silent brainstorming techniques, where members write ideas privately before sharing. This combats groupthink and ensure introvert members are surprised. The fourth strategy is reframing work as a learning problem. Managers determine if a task is framed as a safe space to innovate or a space to hide from trouble. Most companies fail because they interpret work as an execution problem where zero error are expected. We must reframe work as a learning problem, viewing every project as an experiment seeking knowledge. Amy Edmondson's research in 1999 suggests that when goals are based on learning, members are significantly more likely to practice learning behaviors like asking questions and seeking feedback. By celebrating smart failure, it is plan tests that provide key info despite failing. We reduce the social cost of mistakes. Finally, we must adapt to the new normal by making hybrid and remote teams safer. In virtual setting, the lack of physical cue makes psychological safety harder to maintain. Members often feel invisible, leading to siloed communication and declining trust. This requires intentional effort. Remote safety relies heavily on digital social sensitivity, which is the ability to respect the emotional states of others. Managers should formalize virtual check-ins or session minutes at the start of meeting. These are informal conversations where members can share their state of mind or personal challenge. By humanizing the digital workplace, team members feel connected and are more likely to speak up about risk or error without fear.
In a modern management, particularly within Management Society 5.0, we often mistake individual talent for guaranteed success. However, Google's Project Aristotle and academic insight from MGM3043 reveal a different truth. A team's progress depends not on star power, but on the quality of member interactions. The foundation of these interactions is psychological safety, a strategy imperative for high performance. Psychological safety acts as a biological unlock. When individuals fear judgment, the brain enters a self-protective state, prioritizing survival over innovation. This leads to common information bias, where critical insights are withheld to avoid social risks. By removing these fears, teams transition from survival to positive synergy. Members stop performing for safety and start performing for impact, allowing the collective output to far exceed the sum of individual parts. High-performing units are defined by how they framework. In a blame culture, mistakes trigger the question, who is responsible? A move that encourages defensive silence. In a psychologically safe culture, projects are viewed as a learning experiment. They encourage shift from the person to the system, while the our process allows this to happen. By reducing the social cost of admitting error, organizations transform mistakes into valuable data, distinguishing resilient teams from static ones. Maintaining this environment requires conscious leadership, especially in hybrid work settings. Leaders must model humility and ensure equal conversational turn-taking. Through tools like after-action reviews and social sensitivity, leaders bridge the gap between isolated individuals and a unified team. This intentionally is what enables a group to solve the complex, systemic problems of the modern era. In conclusion, psychological safety is the cognitive infrastructure of the modern workplace. It is the bridge from the individual talent to collective intelligence. The goal of management today is not just to gather the best people, but to build a culture where those people are safe enough to be brilliant.